Welcome to Straight No Chaser. So grab a glass and join your hosts, your girl Ann BZ, Pastor C, Thin Bad, and the Chief.
Good evening. Welcome to Straight No Chaser, where we never dilute the issues, we only serve the hard stuff. It's your girl, Aunt Beezy, and as always, I am joined by my fabulous co-hosts, Thin Bad.
Fabulous. Hey.
And the Chief.
Even more fabulous.
Oh, goodness.
Ooh, 2 snaps.
So, guys, a quality education is the cornerstone of American society. Rumor has it, emphasis on rumor, that if you study hard, obtain a decent SAT score or ACT score, get into college, graduate, and let me just backtrack. If you do all these things that are expected of you on the educational level, such as performing well on your test scores and going to school and really giving a good effort, basically trying to become top of your class, you get to go to college, graduate, and get a decent job. That's pretty much the mantra for high school and college campuses, from sea to shining sea. Unfortunately, that's just a rumor because not all public school and college systems are created equally. Every year, the rankings of public school systems around the country highlight the woes of urban districts as they struggle with issues such as test scores, resources, truancy, and teacher compensation. As if this were not enough, students must endure the time-honored ritual of standardized tests and awaiting the acceptance letter from their desired school if they even get that letter. However, the networks are now reporting on another form of inequality involving A-list celebrities, coaches, and admissions people, including colleges like Yale, Stanford, University of Texas, USC, a bunch of big schools. And what's basically happening is these people have conspired to pay for students to get into these big time schools without having to do any work, obviously. So, we're just going to keep it real. Like that's what's going on. So 33 parents now face conspiracy charges in Operation Varsity Blues, which involved wealth and fraud. Unqualified students were able to gain admission as athletes and other categories. So tonight we're going to talk about the state of inequality in education. But before we jump in, I want to remind the audience that you can call in at 702-425-7789 or chat with us live because we want to hear from you. So, Thin Bad, as a former legislator who dealt with educational issues, how did this happen and how did it go so unnoticed for the amount of time that it did? Because this operation has been going on for a couple of years now. So what do you think about this?
It's crazy. There's no way, even as a legislator, I mean, unless it was something that was writ large, it's hard to see all of how it would have come about. But this is why we have the checks and balances that they do. But even with the checks and balances, the assumption is that folks are doing their job and doing their job correctly. And I don't know how this got out because it seems it's probably been going on for quite a while.
Right.
And somebody probably got upset with somebody. Somebody didn't get a cut. Somebody didn't get something they were supposed to get. And somebody, turned states. There's a whole lot of that going on now, it seems like,
right,
in the celebrity world. But I'm glad to see that they've caught this. But the schools that we dealt with obviously on the state level, we had paid closer attention to the state schools.
Right.
So you have a much tighter rein. But here they're using some of these smarty arty schools.
Yes.
You know, the tip top,
The top
the cream
of the
of the
top.
crop,
Right.
the top of the crop of the tip of the top.
And you know it's sad to me because I see okay, I'm a big Twitter person. And on Twitter, it's a bunch of millennials that gather together and we complain and we talk about things. And one of the things that always comes up on Twitter is how a non-minority will say that minorities are taking their college spots because of all the programs that are allegedly in place for us to get into college and help us and all that kind of stuff. And it amazes me how they want to talk about that, but in actuality, you have people. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, and
I don't.
Right. So that's why, it's a little bit more relevant to me. But I remember when I was in high school and I was freaking out about getting good SAT scores. I was freaking out about my GPA. I was just really stressing. And I remember going on tours and making sure that I kept in touch with college admissions people and doing all this stuff to ensure that when I applied, I would have a decent chance at getting into the schools. Let's not even go to the point of paying for the school yet, but just to get in. I went through all that. And I know so many hardworking students that had 4.0s and did all this stuff who still didn't get into their top choices of schools. And now we have, Aunt Becky from Full House. She paid $500,000 for her kid to be recruited. Right. And most of these parents, what they're doing is, the reason why the coaches are involved is, I don't think that they're paying directly for their kid to, well, obviously the result of it is them getting into the school, but what they're doing is trying to finesse it to make sure, to make it look like the kids are student athletes. So what they do is, for example, the head soccer coach at Yale accepted a $400,000 bribe, for a young lady to be on the soccer team, and she never played soccer. So now we're not even talking about getting into school as a regular student. Now we're talking about all these student athletes out here trying to get into D1, D2, Ivy League schools, and their spots are being taken away as well from people who don't even play. Right. And so therefore, when they get recruited as a sports recruit for whatever sport that they go for that they've never played, they not only get a spot on their team, but they get admission into the school naturally. So, that's why I'm pretty pissed about it. I'm really passionate about this issue because it's just really, really sad. I just remember seeing just in my school, and I went to a top tier school out here. And even then, people were freaking out, struggling, crying. I remember people crying in the hallway when the UC schools released their acceptance letters, because they do it around the same. I believe they did on the same day. So all of us got our acceptance or non-acceptance letters. And I remember people crying in the hallway. These are people who had top tier GPAs. They were president of the soccer, I don't know, anything. They were just doing great, and they still didn't get in. So it's just like, I don't want to hear nothing about any minority programs or anything like that, because Aunt Becky and and it's also, fun fact, one of the former CEOs of the Win actually had involvement, and so did Elizabeth Kimmel, who are Vegas natives. And
who is she?
Elizabeth Kimmel, I believe she's in the Kimmel family. She's a former media executive, but she paid.
She related to Jimmy Kimmel?
That was the next question.
Probably, because Jimmy Kimmel is from out here. Probably.
Well, we need to verify that.
Before we put it out there.
That's right.
But regardless if she's related to Jimmy Kimmel or not, she was a huge media executive out here in Vegas, and she's involved as well. So, it's just, I understand from a parent's perspective trying to do everything you can to make sure that your child can succeed and get into the school. But if your kid ain't got it, they ain't got it. Like,
That's right.
that's just
Well,
what it is.
when you look at this whole scheme, there's a couple of things you had to look at. The mastermind was a guy named William Singer.
The mastermind and also snitch.
Right. and he had a business called The Key. And
Somebody's check must have bounced.
Yes.
Something weird happened. But what he wanted to do was, this was a scheme to get children of wealthy parents into top universities. So what he
Right.
did, he had them. He had sort of a two-prong approach. The first thing, he would facilitate cheating on standardized tests,
Yes.
such as the SAT and ACT.
Mm-hmm.
Then he would bribe college coaches and administrators to falsely designate children as recruited athletes, even though they didn't play that sport.
Right.
So you're right, Ambezi. When you look at just the depth of this deception, I mean, he was hitting it from all sides.
Angles, right.
And I mean, for example, just with the whole ACT piece. Now, to me, and again, I'm going, when we talked about Jesse Smollett, I put my investigator's hat on. Not only do you have to look at the things that he did in terms of, all the falsities, and I just made up a word, but
Sounded good.
thank you. But also, they need to now go back and look at a block of tests that were administered, because who knows how many other folks received information. Because once you tell one person, hey man, here's a way to beat the system, they didn't keep it to themselves. They didn't.
Of course not.
So they really need to look back at around the time some of these kids were taking these tests, the ACT and the SAT, to find out, was the test compromised?
Well, I think that's what they're doing now because, I really don't think they have a choice but to do that. But my problem is, you already have, for example, there's this, actually, I really want to look this up because I was looking at this morning, but there's this black girl who had to take her SATs twice. The second time she took her SATs,
in
it was
Florida.
proctored. Yeah, it was proctored by an individual. She didn't take it with anybody else. She scored so high that they didn't even believe that she didn't cheat or something. So you have this little girl pressed. She gets pressed over achieving, and then you have. First of all, let me just tell you why I keep saying Aunt Becky. Right? That's Lori Loughlin. She was on Full House, and she's one of the main actresses that are involved in this scandal. Here's my problem. Her daughter is an Instagram person, and she also does some other work on TV and whatnot. And she literally put out a YouTube video where she said that she didn't even care about school. She was just happy to be going to some classes. She's going to work it out with her dean because she has to go to Fiji and all this stuff. But she really just wants to be at school for partying and getting the college experience. So that's really my problem. Like, that's really what's irking me, because you really have. And I know this is going to tie into what we're talking about later on, because we're talking about inequality. So let's take it there. Let's take it back to these urban cities, right, where they want to talk about how none of the kids are succeeding. The reading levels are low. The math levels are low. They're not at the national average because they don't have the supplies. They don't have the resources. So they sit there and they get condemned for this. But at the same time, they expect these kids to, oh, well, you could be the one that makes it to college. And you don't have to be a product of your environment. And you can do this and you can do that and just shoot for the stars and you gonna touch one. But yet, the opportunities are these are spots. You don't know how many people, now 50 something people got caught, but you really don't know how many people have successfully gone through this process. And it just really bothers me that these are, especially when it comes to the athletes world. A lot of the times when it comes to African American kids who are going to college, a lot of our scholarships come from athletics, unfortunately, but that's true. So, I mean, for example, the former Wynn executive that's here, he had his daughter go in as a USC basketball recruit, and she never touched a basketball. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, our sports, because of in urban cities where the education may not be up to par, our ticket out is through athletics most of the time, and now those spots are being taken away as well. So